This is our first episode and we don't have a theme song, so I'm singing this silly tune. Oh yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Minsk.
I'm Joonatan.
And we are pleased to introduce you to the new podcast we are making. I'm making an executive decision before we come up with a better name. This will be the Minsk and Friends Speakeasy. How's that with you, Joonatan?
I thought that was what it's going to be called all the time, so yeah.
Great, perfect. If you come up with a better name, shoot it my way. There's still a chance to change it, but as we're bumbling around in the first episode, that's what we'll be going with the name for now. So this is going to be our little opportunity to chat about, I guess, current goings-on and whatever else in video games and stuff. Today we are looking at the demo of Final Fantasy VII, the remake, which we've both gone through. And we will see what we come up with today as we ruminate on what we just played through. I myself have just gone through it a half hour ago. You've played it yourself earlier, I believe?
Yeah, I played it about 3 times already.
Okay, so you have a little bit more experience with it than I do. I just bumbled my way through the demo, but it was good. It was good. I wanted to toss a little softball question at first to get in. What would you consider to be like your favorite of the Final Fantasies?
7.
7? Okay, it's a good choice.
It's the first one I played, and it's the one that I've gone back to most. It's been 23 years, so I was 10 when it came out, and that was my first RPG. That was the first one that I really got into, and it blew my mind when it came out at the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were that way as well. I guess I'll just state for the record myself, I got on the bandwagon a little late. I actually technically watched Final Fantasy VIII being played first at my friend's place, because he had both of those. So this would have been like 99 or 2000. But I have to say, he was dicking around in, I think the place is called Win Hill in Final Fantasy VIII, where like not a lot of stuff happens at that part of the game. You're just chilling out in this tiny town. So I was like, I don't know. And then he popped in Final Fantasy VII and he got in like some crazy fight. And I was like, oh yeah, this is it. So that was also basically my first Final Fantasy as well. That was motivated me to buy the game myself. The first chance I got.
Final Fantasy VIII didn't really do much for me at the first time I played it. It was a little bit too much of a teen angst drama, soap opera kind of thing. I couldn't get into it, and it kind of fell by the wayside for a number of years. And I played it again a couple of years ago, and it's still not great, but it was a lot better than I remember it being.
Yeah, I do have fond memories for Final Fantasy VIII now. I didn't hate it at the time, but like the gameplay system at the time is a little odd and whatnot. And yeah, I thought the characters were funnier in 7, so like in 8 they're a bit more plumb standard. There's no talking dog or cat doll or really grumpy ex-pilot astronaut guy.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird seeing Sid go from this badass fighter pilot guy to a plumpy old principal in R8.
Yeah, Robin Williams lookalike.
Yeah. But it's something that if people are listening now, they might not remember or might not know, but like Final Fantasy games used to come out almost on a yearly basis, despite that they were absolutely massive games for the time. Final Fantasy VII came in 97, and 8 came in 98, and then Final Fantasy 9 came out at the tail end of 99.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, I remember getting 9 in around 2000 as well. Yeah,
I think the European release got pushed back to like early 2000.
Yeah, that's probably how it went for me. Yeah.
But it was still one of those things where you're like, that these were really big games. They were like 100 hours of gameplay, and they came out on a yearly basis almost.
And there's like no asset reuse in those either, is the crazy part as well. Like we've got Resident Evil 3 Remake is coming out also in April now, just a year after Remake 2. But they can do that because it's set in the same place, using a lot of same assets, so like they, had a little crutch in that sense, but like all of those Final Fantasies are completely different, the PlayStation ones.
Right. And now we've been waiting for the remake for 20 plus years, because they did promise the initial remake when the PS2 or the PS3 came out.
For the PS3, they made like this tech demo, which was the opening of Final Fantasy VII with just like PS3 graphics. That wasn't technically a announcement of a remake, but that's what everyone interpreted it as. That like people were just going, "Oh my god, it's gonna happen, you guys!" And
Yeah, and Square didn't help things by showing it at E3.
Yeah, I guess that's also like sends the wrong signal a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And then after a lot of false starts, now we're finally here, and it's like 3 weeks to the premiere of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And it's not even the full game, it's part 1.
Yeah, I think we should make this early clear, since probably not everyone realizes this, but even though it's titled Final Fantasy VII Remake, this is only, I want to say, like the first quarter of the original game, like the area that it covers.
It's about the first quarter of the first disc, because the game came out on 3 discs, and the first disc had, for the first maybe 3-4 hours of gameplay, you're in a town called Midgar, and now this full game release is going to be just that portion, just in that city.
So I just as like a consumer-friendly thing here, if you guys at home have not realized that yet, it's going to be like a full game, this game. Like, they've expanded the sequence of Midgar. Like, you're going to have, did you say 20 hours is the estimate?
Yeah, Square hasn't given any official time for it, but they have, like, there's enough leaks and rumors saying that it's like 20 to 25 hours.
Yeah, okay, so that's a decent game length for sure.
Yeah.
But in terms of story beats, this is not going to be anywhere close to done, the story, once this game ends. And it is, like, indeed a part 1. Like,
yeah. And we don't know how many episodes they're going to be coming out, and people are a little bit anxious, myself included, because Square doesn't have a good track record with releasing things on time. So now releasing part 1 with no roadmap of when part 2 is coming out, it could mean that we wait for a year or 2 years or even more just to get a second part to this remake.
Yeah, and of course, talking again about asset reuse, since it's a direct continuation, they're going to have some stuff to work with. But consider that you're going from this cyberpunky cityscape to the open world, lovely verdant backwoods towns and like caves you're delving in and stuff. They're still going to have to do a lot of work to like make all these assets for these areas. Right.
And like, despite that we have the main 4 characters now in the game, we have Barret, Tifa, Aerith, and Cloud. That's not even half of all the characters that you're going to encounter and who are going to join your team. So we still haven't seen properly Kate Sith, we haven't seen Sid, Vincent, Yuffie, any of them.
Yeah, and also what I've heard is Red 13 is going to be in this game, obviously, in the part 1, the one we're getting now in April, but he is apparently not a playable character yet, is the news I read.
Yeah, no, he's just going to be an NPC for now, and then be a full playable character in the sequel.
It's unfortunate a little bit, but it also kind of makes sense, because he, in the area of the story that this game is going to cover, he shows up really late, so like, But
yeah,
it's not gonna ruin the game in that sense. You barely would have had time to play as him, especially because of that situation where he gets in. You're like really in the deep in the game, like in the situation. Like, it's not like you can just walk off and do a bunch of side quests in that part of the game where Red joins.
That's almost to the end of that part. But again, in the original game 23 years ago, that part was essentially the end of the prologue, I could call it.
Exactly.
Because the game, or that part, Midgar ends, and the game is just like, oh, you thought that, anything was done. This is just the beginning. You're now leaving, and you're going to now see the full game.
Yes, that moment in the game is also like, oh, you thought this is the bad guy? No, this is the bad guy. You don't even know what you've been dealing with thus far. So it's it's kind of a bad moment to introduce a new character just to then immediately have the credits roll and like wait another 2 years. So I get that decision to cut Red out as a playable character.
Right, and also I kind of get that they're now playing up Sephiroth because they have to introduce the villain because we're not seeing the continuation for a couple of years. But at the same time, I'm a little worried that they're going to overplay that character because he has become this fan favorite that they put into everything.
By the way, just I think while we're recording this podcast, we should probably avoid huge spoilers, right? Because there are people who don't necessarily have played Final Fantasy VII. We'll try to avoid. We'll save some of them towards the end, but
yes,
I think mentioning the name Sephiroth is still kosher. Everyone knows that character.
He's in every trailer so far.
Yeah, like fair enough. But I'm just like, there's interesting plot points that come up later in the game.
That's true.
We'll try to save on mentioning those guys. Don't worry, folks at home.
Right.
Yeah, I think the original game, it's kind of cool how they don't telegraph Sephiroth very much at all, because going back to that time when I didn't know anything about the game, it came out of left field, like, oh shit, this guy, the Sephiroth guy, he's in this plot. He's not just like this thing that people talk about. It's really like a kind of a left curve throw. So I get that it might kind of like spoil that surprise to have him already being highlighted the way he is going to be.
Right.
But,
and I mean, I think we should probably at least go through the basic premise in case people don't know what we're talking about, is that Final Fantasy VII tells the story about it starts as a story about a group of eco-terrorists called Avalanche who are fighting this Shinra electric company who essentially are draining the planet dry of Mako energy, which is what keeps the planet alive in this universe.
Yeah, every living being becomes like this energy goop, basically, if you want to be very mystical about it. And you're supposed to use that energy goop to like regenerate. It's got some rather kind of Eastern mythology kind of ideas of reincarnation and like a cycle thing going on. But then the big corporation is twisting it for its own ends.
Yeah, and the game begins in a city called Midgar, and it is a highly class-driven, financially or socioeconomically broken world where the rich live on a plate that is hundreds of meters above the ground and enjoy this life of reasonable luxury of what technology by Shinra brings them. And everybody else who is living in poverty live underground, like on the bottom of the pillar in the slums, and they essentially have not even seen sunlight for decades or maybe in their entire lives.
This is basically like, for a lot of people back in that day, this was like the introduction to the cyberpunk genre. Definitely for me. As a little kid, I haven't seen Blade Runner. I'm glad I haven't seen Akira, like all these things, but Final Fantasy VII introduced this whole idea of this future which is, corporate heavy and grimy. It's not like this pristine, super futuristic Star Warsy or Star Trekky thing. Once I learned about cyberpunk, I was like, oh, right, yeah, of course. Like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, and now it's a little bit weird that the original director and now producer, he has come and said that they are wanting to make it more into a thing called diesel punk instead of cyberpunk. And in the original, it seemed to be a little bit more cyberpunky in some cases. And now in this, it like at the demo that we watched and all that seemed to emphasize, like you mentioned, older cars, older technology.
Exactly. It's got like this, all the cars look like they've been ripped from like a gangster movie, basically. Or like from a World War II war movie when you see like the Shinra security mobiles. And the robots also look kind of clunky. Diesel Punk's a great way to put it. The big scorpion guy, he's got like these really unrefined like mechanical bits and huge like shiny armor. It looks kind of like a model kit in a lot of ways. Not like a really like streamlined mechanical machine, but like a big clunker of a thing. It's a kind of an interesting choice, that is. I think it kind of fits with the original's aesthetic, going back like the PS1 with its blocky graphics. That's kind of what works for that kind of a graphical level. Of course, now we've got beautiful PS4 level graphics, but they're still keeping with that theme, which is, I think it's very nice. Very stands out, that look of that world.
Yeah. And one of the things they are emphasizing now is how good the art design and everything has been. And we were in the demo, we already saw, and what you're probably seeing now on the video is that the city itself seems to be modeled after Tokyo in at least some regards, like the subway maps look like Tokyo Underground or the Tokyo rail system.
That stuck out immediately when you pointed it out. They have like a little subway map that shows all the sectors of the city, and it's definitely, I've seen in Tokyo maps exactly like that. Yeah, that's definitely what they're riffing on there.
Yeah, and there's the way that the actual plate of Midgar is built is, again, divided into sectors, which, again, Tokyo is the same way.
They're not just numbered, pure number sectors, but the idea is there, like that it's split into wards, the place. This one, of course, to go with the whole cyberpunk oppressive theme, they're just like sector 1 through 8. So I guess we should get into the demo now in more now as we segue from the basics of the plot. So you've had more time in it, having played through it 3 times. Did you go through the different difficulty options in the game? Because there's easy, normal, and classic. Did you test out the different ones there?
No, I just went directly to the normal one, and I kind of stuck there because I enjoyed it so much.
I did the same. Well, like I said, I've only played it through once, but I went through the normal, and it's really enjoyable gameplay. It's a very good action RPG system, I found. They've found an interesting way to reintroduce the ATB gauge from the original PS1 Final Fantasies. You were into that, right? You were like the way that bar works in this game?
Yeah, because I really love the original active time battle, so I was happy to see that they've at least brought some of that back into this one.
And I absolutely... Basically, it works, as I mentioned when we were playing, it kind of works like the super meter in like a Street Fighter, or like one of these like fighting games, actually, is that you can fight normally without any like turn-based mechanics, but you fill out this meter, which you can then use for your like flashier moves. And I prefer that kind of system in an action RPG much more over like just like an MP system. This one has MP as well for like your spells, but like if it was just a system where you like just have like a capped amount of points to spend per battle for moves. Like on my channel right now, we're playing Tales of Vesperia. The thing I always gripe about is that the game kind of encourages me to like link and combo my special moves in that. Because there's so many options for like you can link your attacks into a basic move, and then you can link that into a special art and so much. But it just eats through all of my points, so it feels a little counterproductive. Like the game is telling me to do one thing and then forbidding me from doing one thing. But this one is there's a flow to it because they're like paying attention to your bar go up there, and it's always like, okay, now I can pull out the one move I need to do. Like I was getting my keister handed in a lot of parts in this demo. The boss fight is it was not a walk in the park at all for me, and like definitely I was always looking forward to that bar filling up so I could like chuck out healing spells or cures when I was like really getting my ass handed to me. And in regular fights there was more like an opportunity to show off once the bar was full enough for me to pull off one of my big splashy moves, because there's the limit break system from the original game, but now there's like a small limit break system the way the ATB now works, and it feels kind of like a rewarding gameplay system to me.
Yeah, and I noticed that they had moved a lot of the original limit break that you had in the first game is now just a normal ability.
The braver move, exactly, yeah.
And I prefer also that it's much more mobile. Like, I have nothing against the old-fashioned one where everybody sits or stands in a line and hits each other. It's classic, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it.
Absolutely.
But, at the same time, this where when you're swinging your sword and you're attacking, and the enemy actually, you can see them run around and move, and you miss them. You know you've missed them, and you can it feels more like an actual fight, and it feels better in terms of an action game.
Yeah, like, don't you think, like, when you were as a kid playing the original, standing in place, chucking out moves as the turns come out, but you were, like, in your mind, you were imagining that the fight was going, like, the way it's in this game. Everyone's just flinging around and throwing attacks with each other, and it's like an actual fight going on. Like you imagined, like, that's how it would be going, the situation.
Yeah, to a degree. Like, I remember when I was playing as a kid, I never had time to think about what they would look like outside of the things. I was always so into the actual mechanics, and those were a little bit more tactical in the sense that you had to kind of constantly look that, oh, it's now, for the next 3 turns, it's my characters, and then it's this, because you had the little lines showing who's going to be attacking. And in this one, it because you don't have like an Dungeons and Dragons style initiative thing going on. Instead, everybody's moving all the time. It's a lot more vivid. Now it feels that you can have this sense of like, oh, this is how they were always supposed to look.
Exactly. Like, this presentation-wise, the fights look so damn good in this. Although, that is also the one reservation I have with this fight system is, in fact, you were saying that in the old game you were thinking tactically about, like, setting up as the bars fill. Mm-hmm. Since this is a constant fight going on, I noticed that what I was already afraid of as I started to play is that I'm not going to remember to use all my options because it's just so frantic. And I mean, it's not that frantic at the beginning anyway. There's just a couple of guys every once in a while. But I did notice that I had trouble, like, really keeping up with all of my options. And every once in a while, especially once you get a second party member, which there's, like, a nice shortcuts there for, like, using multiple characters at the same time, like sending out commands for the other character to do stuff. But even with that, I noticed that a lot of the times the other character was just idling because I was really focused on what I was doing. I mean, not idling. They're fighting, obviously, but not like they had a full ATB bar. I wasn't, like, utilizing them to their maximum because it's a lot to get used to at the beginning. I think all the options you have, even though there's not a huge amount, but just the way you're thrust into it and everything, it can be a little daunting to keep up with all the things going on and all the things you should be doing.
Yeah. And I think one of the things they might be doing, I've read some of this from people who've played the full game now, the combat system is inspired by, of course, the previous Final Fantasy 15, and then Kingdom Hearts, which was the big other game that Square just finally released last year.
Yes.
And that has the same combat mechanics as this one does. And in that, you can kind of tell your teammates how to attack, what magic spells to use more often. Do they, emphasize protection and everything. And I'm hoping that it's not in the demo, but I'm hoping that it's going to be in the full version.
Yeah, some kind of strategy system where you can provide default strategies for them, so they are a little bit more autonomous. I would really appreciate something like that in there.
Right, especially by the time the bigger fights start happening, you're going to need that.
Well, I mean, this boss fight already in this one against the Scorpion Sentinel, it's just 2 against 1, but I was already like, oh my god, I can't keep up because those attacks come out really fast, and they're not easy to deal with, I noticed. Like, he'll fire like a salvo of rockets, and I tried to dodge those things, but, like, I got beamed almost every time. And he's got a EM field that the Scorpion will use every once in a while, and at first I was like, oh yeah, well, there's a huge telegraph there, like the ground glows blue a moment before it blasts. I'm gonna be fine with this. No, I got beamed every time because, like, I'm stuck in my combo and I just see the lights go up and I'm like, oh no, and then I'm shocked by its EM field.
Yeah, one of the big things that's going to be hard to get used to is just, because I think both of us are thinking of in terms of the older games where you had a lot more time, where you could just already, like, one turn ahead, decide the next turn I'm going to defend, and we don't have the... we don't have it down in our spine in the same way that we used to have. Yeah,
this is, I mean, let's be honest, there's been plenty of action RPGs over the years, so it's like, it's not that huge of a deal, honestly, but, like, it's always a little challenge to, like, kind of get in with the system. Action RPGs are often rather varied with the stuff that they toss out. Now, you were saying earlier to me, I have not played... I've not played Final Fantasy 15, and the last Kingdom Hearts I played was the original one, which was much clunkier compared to what the current games like that are.
Yeah.
So, what was your impression of Final Fantasy VII compared to these recent Square releases, like the gameplay? Since you said that it's like iterating on 15 and Kingdom Hearts, like is it more positive for you?
Oh, it's so much better.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because 15 is, I know it's got a lot of fans, and many people feel that 15 was the return to some kind of like what Square used to be.
Yeah, okay.
I was not a huge fan of 15, but that was mainly because I felt that the story was pretty bad. But I did enjoy the world and exploration in it. The combat system in that was clearly the first iteration of what we have now.
Okay.
In that it was fast paced and it was okay, but it felt like that you could get ahead a lot of the time by just swinging your sword, just hitting attack button and not worrying about tactics at all. You could still complete almost any fight that way. And there was not a lot of like change to the style. You didn't have to worry about tactics. And in this one, I was really glad to notice that, like you mentioned, that you get your ass handed to you really quickly, and that you kind of have to keep moving, keep blocking. It feels a lot more dynamic, and I was really happy to see that they had fixed a lot of my issues from the previous ones. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great to hear that they are. Square is still able to improve on the previous package. Like I said, it's on my list, but I haven't yet gotten around to 15, so I can't comment on this one all that much. What I can comment on is the brake system. What's it called? The stagger system in this one.
Yeah, stagger system.
Which seemed very integral in the gameplay of this to like get any work done with the beefier enemies.
Yeah,
it's basically the idea is that you have a meter you're trying to fill out on the enemy to like put them in a staggered state where you can unload on them a lot more. And on the basis of this demo, I can't form a good opinion of it yet, because I felt like it was kind of dragging out some of the fights, but again, it's just my first go-through on it, so I'm not sure if it's just because I'm crap at the game. I don't know how well it works in practice once you're like really one with the game system. Because what I'm having flashbacks to is my brief time with Final Fantasy XIII, which also had a similar system, as I recall, that the enemies would have a stagger state. And that one, it was so compulsory that it was annoying, because they'd have like... Normal enemies would have absolutely gigantic amounts of hit points and sometimes awfully high armor. You had to get that stagger out, and even then, when you got the window to do damage, felt really pitiful. Like, all the fights seemed really annoyingly stretched out. And I was kind of getting the same vibes a little bit. That Scorpion fight was really cool, but it was dragging out a little bit for me towards the end there, the way I was... trying to finish the guy off, but that health bar was just shrinking down so at such a small rate. But like, yeah, I don't feel confident in judging this one yet, because maybe my strategy probably could have used a little bit of a refinement there. Maybe it would have gone a little smoother if I worked more on that staggering there.
Well, I will say that once you played a little bit more and because for me, the second and third time is when I played the demo. It's not a long demo. It's only like 45 minutes in the end. But I noticed that once I started paying attention to what like Cloud's abilities, he's got the Braver, and then he's got like a forward thrust attack or something like that.
Yeah, a big like a stinger move there.
Yeah, and that apparently is meant specifically for staggering stuff.
Okay.
So and Barrett has other abilities that then like specifically have a stagger move to it, and then if you change their fighting styles, one of them staggers harder than the other one does. So, like with the Scorpion fight, I noticed that it went by really quickly once I figured out that a couple of stagger hits would cause it so that it would be in the mode that it takes damage, and then if you change your fighting style to the one that does more, that emphasizes Cloud's damage capabilities.
That's the obvious like strategy in that one, honestly.
Right, but like once that started going, and then like even the smaller fights it became a lot faster. So I got the feeling that what we're seeing is still a really minor portion. That once the actual game comes out in a few weeks, we'll get to see how the mechanics work when you have like say materia that will allow you to do more of specific types of attacks.
Well, Cloud and Barret, they only have like 2 special moves a piece. Like for Barret, it's the focus shot, just a big blast, and then he's got like a defense buff. So like that's not a lot to chew on yet. It's just a taster.
Yeah, and Square's been keeping their cards really close to their chest right now. Like almost nothing has come out of like what kind of skills they have, what kind of materia there is available. We know that there's going to be summons already, but that's about it.
Yes, that's I've seen the fight against the, I forget the name, but the big Rancor beast looking guy in the sewers.
Apsu.
Yeah, like I've seen like there's a summon in that fight which is way earlier than you get it in the original game. That summon, it's very confusing to me the first time I watched that fight go down.
Yeah, and that'll be something to see then very soon, hopefully, that how they're going to integrate all that. And I'm guessing that we're going to have to get used to them moving a bunch of things way early into the story.
Well, I guess this might be a good moment to segue a little bit into the nostalgia factor of this game, and maybe a little bit also about the presentation, which we already kind of dived into that, the way it's like modeled as this amazing cyberpunk city, and it looks super good, right? We'd both agree on that, right?
Oh yeah, and like when I first started playing it, I was shocked at how good it looks and how well it plays. And I think I mentioned this when you started playing it, is that it's because the PlayStation 4 is already 7 years old.
Yes.
And the thing runs at a high frame rate, it looks great, and it's got a great resolution. So on a technical level, the presentation is flawless.
Exactly. But I'm also very interested in how they're going to be playing up all the old stuff for people who did play the original game. And like so far, I'm very happy with. I was pleasantly surprised with some of the stuff they were pulling here. The most notable thing was the enemy variety, which they could have like skimped out on some of the enemies that show up in the original game, because there's a lot of enemies and they're not all of them are as memorable as the rest. But I think every enemy that shows up in the Mako reactor in the original game, I think they showed up in this demo where we were running around.
Yeah, they were all there.
It's and like we were talking about the weird floating eyeball orb scepter thing, like which they have that in the demo, even though it barely fits with Shinra's like theme of corporate cyberpunkiness. It's like a weird bioorganic grass eyeball thing. But because that was in the original game, they had it show up in this one as well.
Yeah. And I mean, based on the video footage that they released so far, you can see that there's like even the weirder attacks, like the one where Cloud or any of the main party, if they're hit by a spell, they turn into a frog. That's in the game still.
Okay, that's amazing, because that's some of that weird, that like 90s JRPG kind of weirdness, I want to call it. Like, I've always appreciated Japanese stories when they're willing to have goofy stuff in them, even if it is a serious or melodramatic story. And I'm like, I was a little afraid that they'd cut down on that kind of stuff, since this is like a next-gen AAA, like a real headliner. It's supposed to be really serious and also like supposed to have worldwide appeal, and that doesn't exactly... The goofiness doesn't appeal to exactly everybody.
And at this point, we have to point out that they are bringing back Honeybee Inn.
Yes, that's amazing. That was like one of the happiest announcements, that that whole side story is in it.
Yeah,
it's basically a Yakuza side mission, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially. And I mean, those who don't know, in the original game, Cloud and Tifa and Aerith Cloud and Aerith have to infiltrate essentially a Yakuza mobster's home to save Tifa. And to do so, they have to disguise Cloud as a woman, because only women are allowed there, because the mobster wants to have a bride, essentially. It's really sleazy and awful as a situation, But in the game, they go to a place called Honeybee Inn, and you have to do a bunch of side quests to get the best possible gear to make Cloud look as the best possible woman he can.
Yeah, and if you do it perfectly, he's like he's so good that he woos the dawn is like the amazing part. It's such a strange little segment in such a serious story, and it's
Yeah, but it was for the 90s, it was at the time surprisingly progressive because it was never made fun of the situation. Cloud meets the other transgender people in the sector, and they like kind of give him this talk about how, you know, it doesn't matter what gender you are, you as long as you're happy, you have to follow your inner voice and all that. And they brought all of that here into this. Like in the demos and the videos, you can see there's like apparently a huge musical number.
Yeah, it's like they're really going whole hogs on that whole sequence. And you're right. It's super cool that it just is like a plan that they concoct in the. It's not literally played up for any like anything mean-spirited, really.
Yeah.
Although Aerith does have a bit of a laugh over the whole thing.
I think Aerith always was laughing more at the fact that Cloud is this grumbly, has maybe a dumb alpha male thing going on. And it takes most of the game, and it goes into some spoiler territory, which we're not going to talk about. But it plays heavily into who he is and what he wants to be.
Exactly. Yeah, it like that comes back in a major way, really. But it's not super spelled out now that you mention it.
Really... but it's one of those great things that have become obvious only like longer, like after the game's been out. So I'm glad that they're keeping that, because it means that Square seems to want to maintain that same story and the same beats in this remake. It should be
interesting to find out everything that they've kept in there as well. But going a little bit to that story now, we've already talked a little bit about how they changed it up, for example, to bring Sephiroth a little bit earlier to the forefront, and you talked about why that may be. How else do you feel about... they're going to be making little changes to the story. We could see that in there, like the situation with the reactor being blown up. You noted how that was kind of it wasn't even a retcon, it was kind of like an expansion to a plot point in the original.
Yeah, because in the original... Well, these are terrorists still, or the main characters, that they... It's mentioned multiple times in the original game that they are not exactly like on the right with this. They're doing it for the right reasons, but like they're multiple times called out that there's been civilian casualties, or at least lots of harm to civilians from their antics.
Exactly.
And in this one, they there's a little bit of a, in a sense, I get your reticence about the thing, because it does take away from their own culpability by having Shinra clearly be the villains by I guess in this, it's done so that the bomb that they place only damages the reactor, and then Shinra causes a much larger explosion to cover up that and to make them look like worse terrorists than they are.
It's a sort of a semi-false flag operation, in a sense.
And that takes away a little bit of the murkiness of the original plot, where the main characters were not like pristine and perfectly in the good, that there was a little bit of a gray area to their operations. So when multiple characters who show up later in the stories kind of call them out for it, there's a reason for that. And now having it so that, oh no, it's been Shinra all along, they did this, I think that's it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that.
Yeah, and I also have to say, like, they've also brought Shinra in earlier, just the company and its personalities a little earlier into this as well, because we see President Shinra, and Heidegger is the guy we see in the demo as well. And I also feel like that was also a little more interesting in the original game, is that you go for a very long time just fighting this company, like an hour or 2 hours. You fight this company, which is kind of faceless almost, and then the face is put on it when President Shinra finally shows up, confronting Cloud and gang, and when that face is put on the company, it's put in a major way. The stunt they pull I don't know if you should spoil that one as well. What happens in Midgar involving Sector 7, but
no, it's probably too big of a spoiler.
But the point I'm making is that they're really evil eventually, Shinra. Like that is eventually made clear that they are definitely bad guys.
Yeah.
But I just feel like that maybe takes a little bit of the tooth out of that revelation, that they already have this scene where they blow up the Mako reactor in the demo.
Right.
It's I'm maybe making a mountain out of a molehill here, but and I shouldn't be analyzing every little story beat that they've changed. That'll just drive me insane.
Right.
And playing the final version. But I can't help but put my critic hat on when I'm looking at things like these.
One thing I am happy about that they have expanded is the other members of Avalanche, that we are getting bigger parts for Biggs and Wedge and Jesse.
Yeah, that's super cool that those guys are way more integrated. I don't know. Do you know, are they going to show up as NPCs, party members at all? Has there been anything about that?
At least in the videos that they've released, that you can see them having way more adventures with them. Like, there's apparently at least a scene where Cloud and Jesse are seen riding on a motorcycle through Midgar.
Oh shit, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, so there's something going on there.
Okay.
And we're getting more of them in a way. And since they've expanded on all areas, I'm going to guess that we're going to at least get something to do with them, which is going to make for the story as it goes along even better, because they were already beloved by fans, even though they had a very small part in the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think of them when I think of Final Fantasy VII. I think of those guys, and they still, their role gets, they leave the story fairly early, but they even get brought up later on in the story as well.
Yeah, they're major figures in at least with Barrett's motivation.
Exactly. Yes. That's when it comes up, whenever you have a little Barrett story in there.
Yeah.
It's in general, it's interesting to see what they're going to do to expand the city of Midgar, because while it's a huge chunk of this time you spend in Midgar in the original game is a huge chunk of the game.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of seeing the city, you get just a snapshot of a few areas. So
yeah.
You get Sector 5, Sector 6, and Sector 7, basically, and then some of the surface places that you go raiding.
Right, and even the sectors here, you see a couple of alleys and a metro stop, and that's about it.
Yeah, but because they've put in the time to make this a full game, we are going to get, you were saying maybe the whole city, all the sectors are available now?
That's, at least some of the rumors have been talking about that, because there's been discussions that you're going to get to see way more of them on their way to these places. We saw in the demo when they showcased what happens after you blow up the reactor is that you actually have a whole adventure scenario in the sector before you get on the train to leave.
Yeah, and that's a really short segment in the original game. You fight a couple of fights with Cloud on these streets, and then you jump on the train, basically. But that's not going to be now something more expanded. That's, of course, where I have maybe the biggest worries in terms of the story is, are they going to have meaningful... Because they have to make new original content for this stuff. Mm-hmm. It's are they going to make that, meaningful compared to when they're just updating the original story and the
Yeah.
But, since it looks promising so far, the packet that they're making, I wouldn't want to be a doomsayer on this.
Right. And I mean, we'll know more in just a very short time. It's a couple of weeks, and then we'll get our hands on it.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Well, you are. Unfortunately, I don't have a PlayStation 4 on me yet. But Square's been pretty good about PC ports, so I'm...
They did say that this is coming onto the PC, but it'll be next January.
Oh, they've already announced that. Well, there you go then. Good on you, Square. Thanks for that, guys.
Yeah, we're going to be a PC and an Xbox version.
Okay, that's good news. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and with the talk about the PS5, which we'll probably talk about then in the future more, that is going to blur the lines even more with the whole exclusivity thing. That we're going to be getting more studio cooperation in terms of getting good PC and good console versions.
Yes. But I'll maybe pop in your place to see the final game once it's out. Then that'll be my way of getting my fix here while I'm waiting for the January release of the PC version. But yeah. Okay, so we've already talked a little bit. Let's wrap it up with some of the things we hope to see in, because since we've only seen so little, really, they've been really tight-lipped. What kind of stuff do you want to hope that shows up in the final product?
I want the materia system to be at least similar to what they used to have, because that was my favorite system in the original game, and no other Final Fantasy has done it as well, in my opinion. I really enjoyed the materias, and that's materia in the game are the condensed forms of Mako that then give the wearer different abilities to cast magic or to summon beings. And in this, it was really cool that you can see the materia in the actual costume design. So the weapon has a slot that they clearly have put materia balls into.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see how they actually, once you start stacking your guys with lots of materia, how those are actually going to show up visually. The worst case scenario is that your guy lights up like a Christmas tree because he or she is just covered in these glowy orbs. But
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. Anything else that you're kind of hoping that they do in it?
My main thing is more not what they are going to do, is that how they're going to present the characters, because we've already seen Red 13 in the videos, and it looks great.
Yes.
My bigger concern is going to be for Kate Sith, who's already referenced in the stuff, and he's a character who shows up much later. We're not going to see him for a couple of years, but
yeah. So don't worry too much about that. What we're talking about now.
Yeah, but then even things like Shinra, because we haven't seen all of Shinra yet. So how Hojo is going to be presented.
Oh, that's going to be really important, yeah.
Yeah, all of these, because these are really iconic characters who you've... I know I have a specific image of how they speak and how they act based on the blocky characters from 20 years ago. So it's going to be a case of just what they get and how well will I be able to adjust my own expectations with them.
That's going to be the trickiest thing, isn't it, for someone, an old fogey like you or me, to just try to be open with it. But when RE2 came out, the remake, I thought it was kind of a joy to see, because that's much like Final Fantasy VII. I remember that game really well, very vividly, all the areas and the story beats and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I thought it was just delightful to watch how they brought back all those elements in new, interesting ways. That's really what I'm hoping in this one as well.
Oh yeah, RE2, the remake, was Resident Evil 2. That was just wonderful. That was a really well made remake, and I can't wait for Resident Evil 3, which is actually releasing on the same day as Final Fantasy VII.
Oh my, remake. Is it really? Oh yeah. My goodness, I knew it was the same month, but the same day. Oh, it's my god.
Same day, because initially we were supposed to get the Final Fantasy VII remake already this month. Actually, we were supposed to get it this Monday. And then it got pushed back by a month, and it's exactly on the same day as Resident Evil 3. Oh my,
that's going to be such a dueling game situation.
Right.
There's going to be people on the... If one of those sells poorly, there's going to be so much crowing online. There's going to be picking sides of silliness.
Yeah, I'll be reviewing both, so that's going to be also... There's going to be an overload of nostalgia at that time.
Oh my god, it's like Time Machine back 20 years. That's going to be weird. That's so weird that these two are coming so close now.
Yeah, and it's still weird to think that they are coming out, because I still vividly remember being a teenager playing them.
Yeah, absolutely. But same with me. It does. We're big old man grouching here. It doesn't feel like it was so long ago. Yeah. Oh man, did you know that in Mortal Kombat 2 there's a secret where you can play Pong in it?
Really?
Yes, and Pong was a newer game back then than what Mortal Kombat 2 is now.
Oh jeez.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry everyone, but I had to drop the truth bombs here. Yeah. Myself, what I hope they do, you covered pretty much most of it. I've been harping all those enemy types showing up. I think it's delightful. So that's one of the big things. I just hope I see almost every enemy that I remember from the original game. I've seen already one. Do you remember the train graveyard area in the original game. That's like a super short area, so they could have easily like maybe cut that out of the game or this remake, or like or just made it like a non-combat area or something, like a walkable cutscene or something. But I saw like in one of the like previews, I saw the stupid enemy from there, which is like this Grim Reaper guy in a chariot. And that blew my mind, like that such a silly enemy type was being kept in like this new game. That was really cool to me.
Yeah, it seems like that they haven't cut anything. They've just added things, which I feel is the right way to go with this.
It's and amazing that they're gonna stick with that. That's already really really good job on that then.
Yeah. Oh, I did remember one thing I want them to keep.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to. I want the sequence where you have to climb 100 sets of stairs.
Oh
to
my
get to
god!
The tower.
Yes, that's also like, wow, this is in the game, isn't it? And
that's one of those dumb things that was in the original game, that you can either sneak in or go through the front doors and cause a big scene. And if you sneak in, you have to go 100 levels.
Yes, we're talking about a skyscraper here. Like.
Yeah, and I hope that that's in the game, because I want to see people freak out over the fact that you're having to climb 100 sets of stairs.
Yeah, and everyone's grouching while they're climbing up.
Yes,
about that.
Barrett's complaining because his gun arm is so heavy that he has to carry extra weight by going up these stairs.
How many more steps, man? Oh my god. Well, also on just purely technical levels, I really hope you have both English and Japanese audio available in the final product. This demo did not have the Japanese voice track. That's fine. The English voice acting is super good. Mm-hmm. It's to me, it sounded really good.
Yeah, the voice cast is really good. That's one of those things that I am happy that they're good, because Barrett could go really wrong really easily. Because that's a difficult character to get it right. His original translation, we talked about this earlier.
Yes, exactly.
Was not great.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. T was popular still then. Not even really. He was more 80s, wasn't he?
Well, I guess so. I mean, Europe and Japan got everything late, so...
Yeah, I will say, when I was a 10, 11-year-old, I was laughing my ass off at the Mr. T versus Everything comics online, so, like, Barrett was perfectly in my wheelhouse, but...
Yeah, but I'm glad that they've toned him down a little bit, even though he's still flamboyant and all that, but... Even that is a part of the plot, which we're not going to get here because it'll be a spoiler. But
yeah.
All of that is it's great that they've done it with maybe a little bit more thought this time.
But definitely, I recommend you guys. I think it's a video on Kotaku. It's called something like Japanese Barrett. It's a guy analyzing, a fluent Japanese speaker analyzing the original Japanese version of Final Fantasy VII and the localization, like comparing the two. And it's like really interesting. Like Barrett is like this solid Snake guy, serious operative dude. Well, no, I don't. But he's leaning on that in the original one, and he's a angry Mr. T type in the American version.
Now, to be fair, the original translator, from what I remember, there is, in one of the multiple histories written about Final Fantasy VII, he got, like, less than a month to translate the entire game, and that's thousands of lines of dialogue. And he had nobody else working with him, and it was just him alone translating the game. And that's why it's so filled with weird... these kind of colloquialisms that don't make any sense, and there's spelling mistakes, and then you have the classic lines like, this guy are sick.
Oh man, I kind of hope that's somehow in this.
Right.
I mean, it would be so like immersion breaking if like Aerith with like perfect voiceover was just like, this guy are sick. But like part of me wishes that was in the game.
Right. But it's like, he had a hard job, and I kind of feel that if he had some clunkiness in the beginning, because like Barrett also, like in the translation, the beginning he's kind of rough. All the characters are kind of rough in the beginning of the game, but I feel like that the translator got more into the groove of the dialogue by the time we got to disc 2 and midway already disc 1. So I kind of feel that hopefully people aren't too hard on him.
No, I mean, I think it's charming, the original game. Like I don't mean to shit on it or anything. The localization job, it's full of all those weird, like you mentioned. I think they just make it a product of its time. Really, it adds to it. But that's a point that is also going to be interesting to see how well this one leans in a little more with the modern sensibilities. Should be fun though.
Yeah.
Okay, well I think we've about cut this demo up into pieces, sautéed it real good, and found out how it tastes. Do you have any closing thoughts still to share on this?
I'm just excited that it's finally happening. It's been so long.
Yeah, like I said, the PlayStation 3 tech demo was the first one that got people fired up, and even the actual announcement of this version was 2015?
Oh, I think it was like 2014 or something.
13. Yeah, so this one's been stewing, yeah. Square Enix kind of has that problem, but...
yeah, they're happy to announce projects, and they're not really good at follow-through.
Well, because they like that wash of hype that comes when people shriek at the big screen at the E3 or whatever, but...
yeah.
Then you gotta, follow through, guys, so... But they're following through pretty good here.
Oh, yeah. This looks like it's answering all of our hopes that we've had for so many years.
Okay, well, in closing, I just want to shortly... I never got around to mention at the beginning what my favorite Final Fantasy was. We just dug right into the weeds, so just so no one there's too, bothered by that. What was his favorite? I think I'm going to go with 5. I really like... the smaller cast gives a better character focus, and I like messing around with the job system. And that's a point of contention, is the script is probably the silliest of any Final Fantasy, even 4, which also has a lot of melodrama in it. But I find it infinitely charming, the 5. But this is the lame, all-pleasing answer. I kind of like all of them to some degree. Except the NES ones are they're so different that the 1 and 2 are a little...
I never played 5.
You've never played 5? Okay.
No.
Well, there's a decent port of it on Steam, but it's based on the iOS version, which has a little rough. Some of the character models there is the only problem, so I don't...
Yeah. I've got a PSP. I can try and find a copy for that.
Yeah, that would actually be probably the superior version, I would say. But, yeah.
I started with the 6th one.
Okay.
The 7th one was the first one I played, but then the furthest I've gone back is 6.
Well, I should also say I've beaten very few Final Fantasies, but I've kind of dabbled in all of them. And that 5 is, I don't think I ever did beat that one either. But, I enjoyed messing around a lot with that.
Cool.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for... listening into our inaugural podcast episode and our thoughts on this upcoming big dealio game. Jonathan, anything you want to highlight about other stuff you're up to lately?
I'm going to be getting my hands on Doom very soon.
Oh my goodness.
Because Doom's coming out in 2 weeks.
That's true. Oh my god, it's only in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we have good times ahead.
Oh goodness, this is a packed spring in terms of games, isn't it?
Oh yeah, even though we got a bunch of games delayed, like Cyberpunk, because Cyberpunk was originally supposed to come out in a couple of weeks as well. So now we have something to look forward to. But I mean, Doom and Final Fantasy and Resident Evil are going to be keeping us plenty busy.
I mean, if everything keeps getting delayed, eventually we're going to hit that crest of delayed games, and it's not going to feel like anything because we're going to have all those games to deal with. So
that's true, and that's not even taking into account the fact that we have 2 new consoles coming out at the end of the year.
That's also a point to consider. Yes, interesting. Interesting it will be. As for me, for guys coming from outside my YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel, Minsk and Friends. Feel free to check it out. Right now I'm playing Tales of Vesperia. If you want to get more of my thoughts on RPGs, there's a 100-episode time waster for you. I'm also going through Owlboy at the moment, which is one of my favorite games. I'm really proud of the playthrough I've recorded of Owlboy, so please check that out, guys.
Wait, 100 episodes?
Of Tales of Vesperia. Yeah, well, it's like 60 hours long, the game, or something. I mean,
jeez.
What did I record episode 116 recently, and I think I'm getting to the final dungeon.
Nice.
And I guess I can, for all you guys who stuck out to the end, I guess I can reveal what's coming up in April. I'm going to be playing the very first Assassin's Creed, which has been a surprising blast for me, and I'm really happy with how that playthrough's been going. So look forward to that in April, guys, to see me bumble about in that game classic. But this was our first podcast episode. I think we did pretty good, but there's always room for improvement. So you guys at home, be sure to write in and tell us what you thought and where we could improve, and maybe some compliments to keep our egos happy. Something like that. And I don't know how often we'll be doing this. I don't even know what might be our next topic. I guess we'll try to focus on what's new and upcoming in the video game world to kind of contrast from what I usually do is play old-ass games. And, well, I guess you review a lot of, like, new stuff as well, but...
Yeah, I guess I should probably plug at the fact that I have a website that I review things on my website called toisto.net. And I review the latest games and movies. So those are usually so that at least a week after the release date for games, but we're trying to keep up with the most latest releases.
Exactly, and I recommend you guys check those out. Jonathan, he's got a good eye on the media, let me tell you that. But yeah, once again, thank you all for listening, and whenever we come back, we'll catch you then, everybody. All right, good night.
Bye.
Bye.